Ashes swept by the wind, forgotten by man, remembered by eternity. The urn sits quiet, ornate, polished, but still dust. A silence not of peace, but of unfinished questions. The fire came. It did its work, flesh to flame, bone to memory. And now the world pretends the matter is settled. But you're not so sure. Because something inside you keeps asking, will they rise? What the fire consumed? Did heaven abandon it? Did the God who numbered hairs lose count when the body became smoke? You've heard it before. From dust you came, to dust you shall return. But they didn't return to dust, did they? They returned to ash. They vanished in heat. They rose in smoke. And now you sit with the question, will the cremated be left behind when the trumpet sounds? And deeper still, will I be left behind if I don't have the answers? There comes a moment when even dust wonders if it will dance again. A moment when the finality of fire feels louder than the voice of resurrection. You try to silence the question. You tell yourself, surely God knows. But faith with no foundation is just fear in disguise. So here you are, looking for truth in a world of convenient theology, searching for what the scriptures actually say, not just what you've been told at funerals, not just what makes death more palatable. No, you want the weight of it, the cost of truth, the confrontation of doctrine with destiny, because this is more than theology. This is your father's ashes, your mother's final request. This is your own urn, sitting somewhere in the quiet future, waiting. And if this question dares to echo in your bones, if something inside you leans forward in holy discomfort, then you already know. You can't just scroll past this. You can't pretend that silence is enough anymore. You can't keep letting others chew your bread for you. The word is calling, the spirit is stirring, and your soul is demanding to know, does the fire disqualify the flesh from resurrection? If you've heard that question whisper inside you, and you're still floating through as a passive listener, if you're still refusing to commit to the truth you claim to crave, then what are you doing here? Why do you approach the gates of revelation with your hands in your pockets? If you won't kneel, at least speak. If you won't subscribe, then write your resistance in the comments and let the world see your hesitation. Because this moment, it isn't just content, it's a confrontation. And some of you, you're long overdue for one. You are not too late. You are not too broken, not too lost in modern doctrine, not too stained by past confusion to grasp what has been written since the beginning. You are not a stranger to truth. You're a survivor of half-truths. You are not disqualified. You are a seeker, not the kind who wanders, but the kind who wars. You are the one who hears the question no one else wants to ask, and dares to stay with it until heaven responds. You are not here by accident. You are not just curious. You are called. You are a vessel, not of polished perfection, but of raw revelation. You carry oil not because life has been easy, but because the crushing was real. You have questions because you've seen death up close, because the urn didn't answer you, because the silence of the pulpit left you with echoing doubts, and now you want the fire that burns lies away. You are a challenger, not of people, but of passivity, of shallow comfort disguised as doctrine, of lukewarm answers passed off as holy. You were not made to nod quietly while eternity is explained away in platitudes. You were born for this generation's confusion. You were born for this swirling chaos of watered-down theology and emotion-based truth. You were born to cut through fog with clarity, not your own, but heaven's. You were born to carry flame, not follow the crowd. The church has forgotten how to mourn. She's traded sacred grief for sanitized goodbyes. No more sackcloth, no more trembling, no more wrestling with the bones. And because of that, she's forgotten how to hope. She's forgotten what resurrection even means. She no longer waits by the tomb. She walks past it and calls it closure. But you remember. You still ache at gravesides. You still listen when the wind brushes against headstones. You still hear the ache of creation groaning for the sons of God to be revealed. You were not made to avoid these questions. You were made to answer them with fire, with scripture on your tongue and eternity in your eyes. So why would you hesitate now? Why would someone who feels the tremble of truth pull back from it? If you believe you're part of the remnant, if you believe you were born for such a time as this, then what is holding your allegiance back? Silence won't protect you. Spectating won't mark you as faithful. And scrolling will not prepare you for the trumpet. If you feel that weight in your spirit and still refuse to be counted, then speak. Speak in the comments. Name your resistance. Confess your delay. Because the scrolls are being unrolled, and your voice, your witness, matters. You've felt the weight, you've sensed the call. But now, you must confront what stands in the way. It doesn't come with fangs or flames. It doesn't announce itself with horns and heresy. No, it comes clothed in tradition, in politeness, in softly spoken doctrines that slowly untether us from truth. You trusted what was handed down, not through scripture, but through systems. You didn't question because the robes were white, because the words were clean, because the hymns played at the right time, and the flowers were arranged just so. You assumed it was holy because it was familiar. But tradition has a way of becoming its own gospel, and slowly it replaces fire with form, replaces resurrection with ritual. We've welcomed funeral customs dressed in religious robes, but soaked in unbelief. When did we stop asking what God said? When did we start letting culture define what ashes to ashes, dust to dust really means? We talk of rest, we speak of peace, but underneath the eulogies and urns, there's silence, a silence that doesn't wrestle with the question, will the cremated rise? There's a trap in believing that fire is final, that what the flame touches, heaven forgets, that when the body is scattered, the promise is lost. It's subtle. It hides under reverence. It calls itself acceptance, but in truth, it's surrender to a smaller God. Do you not know the one who calls bones back to life? Who knit you together in secret and can call your matter back from the sea, from the wind, from the flame? Who called Lazarus after 4 days of rot and said to dry bones, live? And yet, there's another trap, more dangerous than ignorance, pride. The pride that whispers, surely cremation is unnatural, unworthy, unholy, as if your theology can define his reach, as if man's method of burial can outmatch the Creator's command. Burial or burning, your method is not the measure of his mercy. But some would rather cling to the illusion of purity than admit they misunderstood his power. They'd rather honor custom than bow to truth. They'd rather divide over dust than unify under the blood. And the final danger, thinking that your death, however it may come, somehow limits your God. Thinking that fire or flood or war or disaster can erase your name from the Lamb's book. As if he needs your bones perfectly aligned to call you from the grave. The earliest martyrs were burned. The prophets were sawn. The apostles were scattered. Do you think their manner of death disqualified resurrection? Or do you believe, truly believe, that the same Spirit that raised Christ from the dead can raise you, no matter what the world has done to your remains? And if this pierced something in you, if it uncovered how easily we've made tradition our teacher, and yet you still won't subscribe, why? Why run from correction? Is your comfort louder than your conviction? Is truth an embarrassment to you now? If this cut, then let it cut deeply. If you have breath, you have time to wrestle, but don't do it silently. Speak in the comments. Let your refusal be known. Let your hesitation testify, because heaven is watching for who trembles at his word, not just who hears it. You've faced the traps, now lift your head, because what the enemy hoped would shame you has only prepared you. Experience is not your weakness, it's your weapon. What you've walked through, what you've questioned, what you've endured. That is your authority. You've stood by the ashes, you've buried loved ones, you've wept at closed caskets and scattered remains, and yet you're still here, breathing, believing, asking. That hunger, that ache for clarity in the middle of chaos. That's the sound of spiritual power awakening. The world may laugh at your questions, religious minds may scoff at your wrestling, but heaven listens when the soul groans for truth. The body may burn, but the soul, Oh, the soul testifies. It declares, I am not undone by what touched my flesh. It cries out, you may touch the dust, but you will never silence the Spirit. Do you think the flames have the final say? Then let Scripture speak louder. Lazarus, rotting in a tomb, wrapped in grave clothes, heard a voice that penetrated death itself. Come forth. And he did. Dry bones, scattered, lifeless, forgotten in a valley, responded to wind and word. They rattled, they reassembled, they stood. The martyrs, consumed by lions, fire, sword, and silence, will not be missing in the resurrection. Their fragments, their ashes, their dust, all known, all seen, all remembered. What was scattered in suffering will rise in glory. Paul, beheaded. Did his missing head stop his glorified body? Was the resurrection paused by a Roman blade? No. The same Spirit that raised Jesus from a torn, crucified, speared body will raise you. Let that settle. Let that truth break the chains of fear, of doubt, of theology shaped by funeral homes, and not by fire from heaven. This is not the age of retreat, not the hour to tiptoe in doctrine or tip your hat to unbelief. This is the hour of awakening. This is not retirement, it's refinement. You are not too old. You are not too late. You are not disqualified because of how you've lost or nor how you will be lost. You are here because God is calling His remnant out of slumber, calling His people back to power, back to boldness, back to resurrection hope. You are not dust drifting in confusion. You are fire and contained for now, but destined to rise. So why would you hear truth that reclaims your dignity and walk away unchanged? Why would you come this far into conviction and leave it at the edge of transformation? Subscribe, not for algorithm, but for alignment. And if something still resists, name it. Drag it into the light. Comment with your hesitation. Let's wrestle doubt into submission together. Because resurrection isn't just an event, it's a promise. And you were born to carry it. There comes a time in every believer's life when silence speaks louder than 1,000 debates. A time when you stop casting pearls before swine and start guarding what's holy within you. You've heard the truth. You've tasted the weight of it. And now it's time to draw the line. Yes, you will be misunderstood. You will be mocked. They'll say you're extreme, superstitious, disconnected from modern theology. Let them talk. You weren't called to be understood by a crowd. You were called to be faithful to a cloud of witnesses, a lineage of prophets, a remnant of saints who never bowed to popular doctrine. There is a boundary, a sacred perimeter, not around your ego, but around your oil. The oil of belief, the oil of clarity, the oil of resurrection faith that cost you too much to spill in argument. You don't need to answer every scoffer. You don't owe everyone an explanation. And no, your silence is not cowardice. It's consecration. This world wants access to every part of you. It wants you available, compliant, distracted. But holiness requires withdrawal. And fire requires fuel, not leaks. Protect your fire. Don't waste oil trying to convince those committed to blindness. Don't waste breath on those who don't mourn the absence of power. Let them scoff. Let them scroll. Let them sleep. You were never meant to entertain them. You were meant to awaken them, not with noise, but with the undeniable fragrance of someone who's been with God. You were called to ignite saints, to walk into rooms and shift atmospheres, not with credentials but with consecration. You've seen too much, felt too much, lost too much to keep dancing around truth. So draw the boundary, build the altar, stand in the fire and refuse to flinch. You don't need to explain why you believe God can raise ashes. Your belief doesn't need to be palatable. It needs to be pure. You are not required to share the mic with mockers. You are not obligated to turn sacred mysteries into casual discussion. There is no shame in being firm, no guilt in turning away from distraction. There is holiness in limits. There is power in withdrawal. Let them call you strange. Let them call you rigid. Let them say, you've changed. Yes, you have. You've gone from debating resurrection to becoming a living prophecy of it, and that shift requires courage. The courage to walk alone sometimes. The courage to keep your convictions clean. The courage to carry resurrection hope through a funeral culture. You will not be everyone's cup of tea. But you weren't brewed for comfort. You were forged for fire. Still watching? Still listening? Still quiet? Then ask yourself, is it because you fear what this truth will demand of you? Or are you still hoping this turns into some spiritual entertainment? Either way, speak, comment. Let your resistance come into the light. Because the moment you cross the boundary into consecration, you stop playing church and start becoming the church. And that takes courage. But courage is your portion now, so take it. And don't look back. Your belief, your quiet, unwavering, costly belief, echoes louder than any pulpit. When you say yes to the resurrection of ashes, you're not just making a doctrinal statement. You're prophesying with your life. You're preaching resurrection without a microphone. You're preaching to your bloodline, to your household, to the sleeping church, and to every watching principality in the air. You are declaring, our God is not limited by the urn, not intimidated by the fire, not confused by what man has scattered. The martyrs were burned at the stake, their bodies reduced to dust, their names written in heaven's scrolls. Are they forgotten? Are they disqualified? Never. They are the first fruits of a coming resurrection. The world watched them burn, but heaven saw them rise. And now, so will you. You who dared to believe that what fire consumes, God remembers, grain by grain. You who speak of resurrection in a cremation generation, you are not strange. You are prophetic. You are not late to the truth. You are leading the charge. And when your children hear you say, yes, even ashes can rise, you're teaching them to believe again. You're teaching them that God doesn't flinch at what man fears, that he who formed man from dust can, and will, form him again from ashes. You're giving your grandchildren language for the miraculous. You're giving your bloodline a theology of power, not panic. And heaven sees it. Every time you choose truth over tradition, clarity over comfort, resurrection over resignation, heaven records it. And your legacy? It won't be one of compromise. It will be fireboned. It will be unshakable. It will walk through the valley of death and come out testifying. Your legacy will not end in an urn. It will rise. It will rise in the way your children pray. It will rise in the way your grandchildren dream. It will rise in the way your name is remembered, not just in stories, but in faith. You were not put here to wonder if dust could dance again. You were called to declare it, to walk among the doubters as one who knows what's coming, to live resurrection before it's visible, to carry the memory of fire, but also the certainty of glory. And one day when the trumpet sounds and graves give way and ashes are summoned by name, you'll know. You were right to believe, because your ashes are not forgotten, and your faith will not return void. You'll rise with fire in your bones, with glory in your limbs, with justice in your breath. But until then, your belief speaks. So I ask you plainly, why remain silent? If you want your faith to echo beyond your bones, why would you withhold your voice now? Are you waiting for someone else to validate you? Or are you ready to stand among the living? Because resurrection starts now. If you're still hesitating, speak. Confess it. Let us all see who refuses to rise. Fire does not end the story. It begins a testimony. The flame that touches your body does not erase your identity. It reveals it. You are not forgotten. You are not forsaken. You are not too scattered for the Spirit to gather. He knows every fragment, every flake of bone, every grain of dust. He calls each one by name. You are not fading. You are becoming flame. You are the ember he refused to let die. The coal hidden beneath the ash heap of culture. The breath of God is near, and you're about to burn holy, so rise. Not with passivity, not with polite prayers, but with a roar. Let your yes punch holes in hell's assumptions. Let your shout wake the sleeping. Let your surrender shame the proud. You weren't called to survive this age. You were called to confront it. This is not the time for pretty faith, for safe religion, for soft-spoken belief. This is the time for furnace walkers, for grave robbers, for resurrection bearers. You were not meant to blend in with the ashes. You were meant to stand out in the smoke. Because when he returns, he's not gathering opinions. He's gathering remnants, burning ones, faithful ones, ones who didn't wait to be understood, but chose to be set apart. So I charge you, ignite. Ignite without apology. Ignite without waiting for consensus. Ignite without one more article, one more sign, one more excuse. Roar with truth until your bones are clothed in glory again. Speak with fire, even if your voice trembles. Believe with fire, even if your doubt still lingers. Stand in fire, because the Son of Man still walks there. If this made your spirit tremble, and you still won't subscribe, what are you even here for? To spectate? To sip on conviction like it's coffee? Or will you finally erupt? Lament in the comments. Let the honest cry of your hesitation convict someone else into courage. But know this, he is watching. The cloud of witnesses is watching. The unborn generations are watching. And they're not looking for celebrities. They're looking for saints. Let the fire fall, let the bones rattle, let the ashes speak, let the remnant rise. Now go, burn.